All right, folks, we'll start now. Thank you for joining us at Sapiens Next Gen Life Insurer. I'm going to hand you over to Nicola from Celent. Nicola, can you take the stage, please?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, and thank you for joining us today. I think we have a pretty good agenda and also a great topic to discuss. This is about the next gen life insurance and getting a view from very strong, big experts in this domain. For instance, Microsoft and the different Sapiens executives that are present for this session. My name is Nicolas Michelot, and I'm a senior analyst at Celent. Actually, I lead the EMEA and APAC insurance practice, and I have 25 years experience in the insurance industry as well as the technology domain. So let's have a look first at the agenda for today. If we can move on. Yeah. So we will be about 1 hour together today. We'll talk about the catalyst for change, or at least how Sapiens experts see this from different regions. We'll have Finn Oscarsson, who is regional director at Sapiens in the Nordics region. And so he has a lot of experience, not only in the life and pension, but also in the property and casualty business. He started at Sapiens in 2018, and he brings a lot of technology background to this discussion. We'll also be with Gary Tessendorf. He's based in Africa, and he's regional director for the sub-Saharan African market at Sapiens. He has a few decades of experience, and he's been working in the UK, New Zealand, and South Africa. It's going to be interesting also to see what he thinks about the catalyst for change in insurance in his specific region. Steve Williams will provide a more UK-focused view on this. He's sales director and customer services executive. He has more than 30 years experience in this domain. Then we will move to the perspective on the insurance, insurance evolution and how Sapiens see this. And Stuart Heyman, who has also more than 3 decades of experience working with tier 1 insurance companies at Sapiens, will provide his view on this topic. Then we have the chance also to have with us Shrikant Madani, who is industry advocate at Microsoft. He's been working in different markets across Europe, and he will be able also to provide the Microsoft view on this industry. So this is going to be a very important point of view from a major player and a partner of Sapiens. We will continue with the guidelines for success and how Sapiens see this going forward for the life insurance industry, especially how new technologies help insurance companies going forward. I will be asking some few questions about that. And then we'll have a final session about Q&A. But actually, you should not forget that you can ask questions whenever you want. You'll certainly be able to see the Q&A field on the right-hand side of your screen. And if you have any question during any of these sessions, do not hesitate to enter your question, and I will be glad to pass these questions to our experts. But let's start now with the catalyst for change, and maybe I will ask first Finn to provide his view from a Scandinavian point of view.
Well, thank you, Rick. I think well, it's great to be here today. In the Nordic market, in the Nordic region, we see kind of 4 drivers for the change within the life and pension area. It's the low interest rates that are forcing the insurers to kind of reconsider their approaches and also their cost focus, and automating their businesses. Secondly, we're seeing that the Nordic customers, I think the Nordic within insurance has always been the kind of the Silicon Valley area in the world, because we've always been in the front in terms of customers and digital approach and digitalization. And I think during the COVID, we've seen a kind of an extensive boost in that area. So again, the insurers are being pressed that they have to be able to provide these services on a digital basis. Thirdly, we see new products and new regulations in the market. I mean, it's a never-ending story seeing that all the regulations that are coming in, but these new products are kind of also moving into the market and being requested by customers and also maybe by their partners, so that they have to be more flexible in implementing these new products, where old legacy systems have a big challenge in achieving that. And I'd say that the fourth area that is coming up, maybe a bit as a surprise for myself, but due to all the recent cyber attacks, many of the people that we're talking to, also our customers, are moving into the cloud. And that's just not from a cost efficiency basis, but it's also from the security aspect of having your application in the cloud and also having your data in the cloud. And I mean, our collaboration with Microsoft in this area allows us to of course, support all the regulations with regard to data and data privacy. And in the Nordic, we're so lucky that we have Microsoft that are storing data in Norway specifically. So those are the four trends that we see in the Nordic marketplace.
Thank you, Finn. Very interesting. So low interest rates, I would say this is a kind of story we hear all over the place, and especially in Europe, I have to say, but I agree with you. This is certainly, I think, more, Sweden is a particular market, but Sweden can be compared with Germany and Switzerland for that. Product diversification, digitization, cyber, the role of the cloud. I think these are important topics, and based in Switzerland, I have to say that we have the same kind of challenge also here. But what about you, Gary? If you have to provide a perspective from an African point of view.
It's always amazes me, Nicholas. I mean, the fact is, insurance really is a global technology and a tool set, but very similar in mindset to what Finn just said. What I'm seeing here locally is a rapid acceleration of what I officially call a business-led digital transformation. Those conversations about IT leading the charge have changed significantly, I would say, in the last 6 to 9 months, and primarily as a result of COVID. I mean, everybody here, I'm sure, knows the fact that South Africa probably had one of the longest and most comprehensive lockdowns across the globe. And that's had a significant impact on the local market. I mean, the reality of the situation is most of the insurance companies and the executives we're speaking to have had significant declines in new business volumes, significant increase in simple claims like credit life and the like. And as a direct result of this, I mean, literally the old adage of the reliance on broker and agency-led models has been put into, essentially, it's in a bit of a trouble state right now. So essentially, most of the executives are now asking the right questions regarding how do I engage with my brokers, how do I engage with my agents, my B2C channels and the like. And obviously, but by no means the least, how do I look after my support, how do I look after my staff that are working from home? Now, what we're seeing on the back of this impact of COVID is two key digital themes that I'm seeing in my executive conversations. One is where there is no real desire at this stage to what I call a transform the legacy landscape, and essentially looking to leverage the legacy that's already in place by putting some digital technologies on the front end. But the one that's more exciting, I think that's globally for most of Sapiens, is obviously the foundational pieces. We're literally looking at transformational programs, re-architecting the business from the ground up, simplifying complex IT landscapes, deploying foundational technologies, cloud readiness, new age, platform and digital capabilities. And what we're seeing from those customers and prospects that have made or are making those journeys is we're seeing a large-scale, significant acceleration and away from their peers. I mean, that's the reality. That's why they make those changes in the first place. What we're also seeing from a product perspective, to come back to what Finn was saying, as a simplification drive. Obviously, it's more geared towards digital engagement and the like, but literally simpler products for larger markets. And then by last, but by no means the least, is the cyber. Finn, I couldn't have said it better. The reality is down here in SA, we're aware, and again, this is global news, but the fact is we're aware of two large-scale tier ones that were recently, I'd say in the last 12 months, obviously underwent cyber attacks. And those are the ones we know about. And the fact is the advent of the cloud, the cost savings optimization, the security, and obviously with the likes of Microsoft and its other very similar vendors in the space, opening up local offices in the South African region. It's definitely front and center with most of the South African executives, this cloud conversation.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I find interesting also, you've mentioned that COVID lockdown has been pretty strict in South Africa, and I have to say that this is just a shame because your national rugby team doesn't play any longer. So I think you have to find a way to change that.
I'm sure you're not missing us too much for now.
Uh,
We'll be back.
yeah.
We'll be back.
They are too strong, so it's better that they don't play them. Okay, but let's move on now to Steve and get his view from a UK perspective.
Thanks, Nicola. Actually, Gary, I think they are all here. They're just playing in our Premiership. But not wanting to repeat everything my colleagues have said, I think they've picked on I think the key things that are influencing the UK market as well. Probably what I'd do is add a little to that list. I think data protection has become a big issue for us. So not only from a standard operation perspective, but mainly from a marketing perspective. You know, how do we contact people? Who can we contact? Getting permission and so forth has caused major changes. Alongside just getting closer to customers, trying to create meaningful customer journeys and engage with the customers on their various devices in the way that they want to engage. Everybody's mentioned cloud. It's fascinating. I think 2 years ago, this conversation would be impossible. Nobody seriously believed that insurance would move to the cloud. It's happening very, very quickly, but I think the thing that feels the strongest point to me is the rate at which the technologies in the cloud are accelerating. Security, DevOps, elasticity, all of the benefits of the cloud are improving at such a rate. I think there's a big risk of a discontinuance between those that are on the cloud and those that are not in coming days. And I think lastly, in the UK, simply the depth of specialization that our insurers are going to find that competitive edge. Oftentimes in new and interesting business models and different ways of engaging with customers, but always that customer-centric customer journey perspective. So yeah, very exciting and interesting market. Perhaps one more thing to add, COVID, and really the big impact for us has been the risk of business continuity. So, you know, if we can't go into the office, how do we access our systems? How does the business keep operating? So that's become a major topic, and again part of the cloud and digitization agenda.
Thank you, Steve. I have a major question because you haven't touched this topic, but you've mentioned COVID and the impact of COVID. So I don't know who wants to answer this question, but actually we know that the life insurance industry have embraced the globalization, but with COVID, we've seen a stop to this globalization trend. So for instance, we've seen the travel bans, we've seen also boundaries being closed between different countries, and to a certain extent, sometimes insurance companies rethinking whether they want to offshore different types of support or services. Sapiens being a very international player in this field. So have you had any discussions about offshoring going forward and whether it changes the strategy you have on this topic?
Yeah, let me give you our perspective, Nicola. I'm sure my colleagues will contribute as well. Actually, it's been a very strange experience. We obviously have our methodologies and technologies that we use and processes that we follow. So we had to do a lot of deep thinking about how those processes could still be run and how we could still continue to deliver change for our customers. And we made some tweaks. It is much more difficult to run a blueprint, for example, over Skype or WebEx or any of these technologies. But with the participation of both parties and with some ground rules, we found that it actually can be very, very successful indeed. So we have continued to run processes that you would normally say that is not going to work unless we're face to face. We've done it. They've been possibly more successful than previously, because of the deliberate development of those methodologies and the deliberate laying down of rules. So has globalization affected us? Yes, we work differently, but it hasn't stopped us in any way. In fact, I think we're doing more this year than we have in any previous years. We're doing it remotely. So the communications technology is improving rapidly, and the use of cloud means that we can continue to deliver remotely as well. So we can be anywhere in the world and still support our customers, obviously subject to data privacy. But yep, we're continuing to be an international and global company in the way we operate.
Yeah, thank you. I'm conscious of the time, but I understand well. I think this is an interesting point you mentioned about continuing to deliver what you can deliver and doing in a proper way, even using the remote facilities. But let's move on maybe to the next topic. The next topic is the Sapiens view on how insurance is evolving. And we have Stuart Haymond who will provide his feeling or his opinion and Sapiens view on this. So Stuart, up to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I hope everything you see in front of you here on this slide you'll be okay with. It's not an exhaustive list by any stretch of the imagination, but the bottom right hand corner has really focused a lot of attention recently. We know that governments are going to start looking at how they can pay for all the financial subsidies that they've dished out during COVID, and life and pensions, unfortunately, is top of their list as to how they're going to recoup a lot of that expenditure. I don't want to cover every single one of these drivers, which is underpinning how life and pensions is changing. We all know regulation is there and will be there forever and ever. We all know that the demographics across the world are causing a lot of concern as people live longer and there are less people in employment. But if we can move to the next slide, I think it's quite interesting if we look in a little bit more detail at the demographics. And what we've been doing with a number of our customers is working with them to understand how the different demographic groups or cohorts can be segmented. And I've been working with several customers over the past 12 months virtually. But on the right hand side of this slide, you'll see that there is a simplified agreement as to how you can break the customer experience into 7 stages. So if we can move to the next slide, please, Sigo, I'll give you some background to this. In reaching that conclusion, one of the drivers for an awful lot of organisations I'm working with at the moment is moving to a more personalised service proposition. And in order to do that, you need huge amounts of insight. You need to use the data you've got and third-party data. But if we break down the demographics into those 4 verticals, the silent generation, boomers, Gen X and Gen Y, and then you start looking at the different attributes that determine their behaviours. I'm not saying this is sacrosanct, but I'm saying what I'm sharing with you is some of the findings that we've uncovered, and we've done this by actually interviewing customers as well. So, for instance, we've launched a digital online service and we tested it across the customer base, which covers all those 4 generational groups. Now, this is not exhaustive. There are obviously a number of other parameters that we need to take into account, and we've started work on that. And one of the interesting elements is the difference between an employed and self-employed person and how their behaviours are so different And what this is helping us to do is helping us to inform what the digital journey should be for each group or cohort. A while ago now, we came across the abbreviation ROBOL, which was research online by offline. And interestingly enough, what's happened throughout the last 12 months with COVID is that that's been even more prevalent. And what COVID's also done for the life and pensions market is it's accelerated a digital service proposition, both for onboarding, servicing and claims. And we're working very closely with a number of organisations now who are refocusing their attentions on how they can serve digitally customers throughout the whole lifetime of a life and pension product. Just one more slide before I move on, if I could please, Sigal. So, how is insurance evolving? We've gone through the drivers, but what I'm also witnessing is that the concept of group pension, group risk is very much back in play. And what we're seeing also is an evolution in that space where employers are not just providing pension services, but also providing a number of other flexible alternatives. We're also witnessing a lot of pension consolidation in the marketplace, where the Australian model, where the pension follows you from employer to employer, has been adopted across Europe now. COVID bounce, yes, I've had, even this morning I've been on a conference call with one of our clients. They've shared a lot of their experience over the past 12 months with me. They're seeing a massive increase in mortality and morbidity products, particularly on the income protection side of things. And they're also, interestingly enough, talking to us about adding riders to products to provide readily available cash. And this is on the back of the fact that during COVID, a lot of the population were short of ready cash, and they're realizing now that there's a need, and an awful lot of providers are readying themselves to launch new products with riders to provide that. Technology, Steve, Finn, Gary, my colleagues have already mentioned this, but we are being asked about mobile applications now. No longer is it the case you pick up a phone and ask what the value of your policy is or your pension investment is. You want it there and then online. And there's a lot of movement in that part of the world in terms of investments and pensions in particular. In protection, and that's mortality and morbidity, we're seeing a huge drive towards pre-underwritten quotations, much like in P&C, where you fill in all your information and then get a fully qualified underwritten quote. That is gathering huge momentum in the life and pensions space, as is the concept of continuous risk assessment. Quite new, but this is being, or has been, sorry, very, very successful. A number of providers have launched this concept into the marketplace, and it's engendered a real partnership between the insured and the insurer, whereby the insurer is able to provide better terms if the insured is a very compliant and obedient customer and takes their treatment regularly. I've already talked about the focus on CX, customer experience, analytics and insight. Massive, absolutely massive. And the move to provide personalization in terms of not just a personalized service, but a personalized, empathetic and understanding service is second to none. And that is really gathering momentum, and is early results are showing a huge customer retention. And my colleagues have already mentioned new products. We're moving back from very complicated products, all singing, all dancing, multi-risk structures, to very simple structures, but very simple and flexible to adopt and adapt throughout a customer's lifetime. And I think what's happened as part of all the drivers that I've just mentioned here is a new and somewhat emerging market in life and pensions is taking place as well. And that is the lifetime mortgage market or the equity release market. As people move into retirement, they're realizing that the biggest asset they've got is their home, and they're trying to release equity from that home to support the shortfall in pension. So I hope that was a quick gander through a view from Sapiens in the life and pensions market, and it's been helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. I think you've made a good summary of the technology, the main technologies that insurance companies need to invest on because they are key enablers to achieve these different business goals. I would just have one question, and I recall that everybody on this webinar, if you have any question, do not hesitate to use the Q&A field. I'll be glad to share these questions with our experts. But Stuart, if I get back to the generations, the different generations you've mentioned before, in your experience working with tier one or large life pension insurance companies, do you think they are doing a good job currently at offering the right services and the right way to service, being digital or maybe being more personal services to those different types of generations?
Great question. The answer is no. There are exceptions to that, however, and these are organisations who have invested and strategized in this domain. A lot of organisations are still behind the curve here, and what I'm witnessing, and I'm working with two very entrepreneurial providers who basically see this as the future, is that they are winning business and taking business away from those who are the status quo is where we are and are struggling. So I think it's not a case of survival. I think it's more a case of brand awareness, brand affinity, and these organizations are really, really building a customer-centered brand.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on. We have Shrikant Madani from Microsoft with us, and Shrikant will provide us with the perspective of Microsoft of the insurance industry. I'll let you present this, Shrikant.
Thank you very much, Nicola. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shrikant Madani. I'm a strategist at Microsoft, focused on the financial services industry in EMEA. All my fellow speakers from Sapiens talked about some of the current drivers in insurance, especially in the COVID context, and maybe I can share some perspective as well from the Microsoft side, based on my engagement with CXOs and insurance companies, as well as with insurtechs and consulting firms. Sigal, if you'd kindly go to the next slide, please. Right, so I think one of the things that's top of mind is sustainability, and I think that there is an analogy to be made with the term artificial intelligence. I think both of these are so-called suitcase terms, which can have lots of different ideas and concepts inside them. I think a couple of years ago, one could go to a CXO and talk about AI, right? And that probably is no longer the case today because it's supposed to be everywhere. And similarly, I believe that sustainability is going to be increasingly pervasive and be part of the core business model going forward, right? But perhaps looking at the slide, I can talk about a couple of ways of looking at it. And this sort of taxonomy is based upon a proposal by two Swiss professors a couple of years ago. So the idea was, if you take business as usual as being the classic Adam Smith invisible hand idea, which lasted for 200 years, let's say, till Milton Friedman defending it as well, right, with this classic paraphrase statement about the business of business being business. And then you say, okay, let's try and optimize parts of the value chain to be more ecologically responsible. We call that probably sustainability 1.0. 2.0 would be, let's say, the so-called triple bottom line of people, planets, and profits, where it was not just about optimizing, if easy to do, but trying to find a balance. And probably most firms are somewhere there between 1.0 and 2.0, and that's the sort of middle part of the framework. And on the left-hand side is what I think we can call 3.0, where firms don't look at their existing business model, but they look at their existing capabilities and try and construct a business model which will have an outsized societal impact, right? And to round off the framework, of course, there are the things that one needs to react to, most obviously climate change, but also other kinds of risks, both in terms of the physical aspect and the transition aspect, right? And from all of these, I believe that together with data and technology, one can identify or accelerate specific project priorities. Maybe the next slide, please, Sigal. Thank you. So now we've talked about innovation from a sustainability perspective, right? But a lot of that also, it involves many things. So let's say access to technology, to data, organizational agility, the talent that you have, and of course, the platforms that you use, both infrastructure and SaaS, right? And in this context, Satya Nadella, Microsoft CEO, talks about something called tech intensity. And if you look at it like an equation, as is depicted on the slide, he says it's tech adoption, i.e. access to technology. And the point here is, a few firms, especially the large tech companies, are spending a lot of money and resources on developing cutting-edge technologies that they then make available almost as a commodity through cloud-based services. And it makes little sense to try to replicate that, right? So the idea would be get access to the technology, but build your own tech capability. And that's what every organization will need to do. And that's, again, an argument also for SaaS services. And perhaps my colleagues from Sapiens will also have an opinion on that. And all of that needs to be done in an atmosphere of trust. I know we had previously someone talking about privacy, right? And this is especially relevant for financial services, one of the least trusted industries, and especially in our times where large groups of people do not trust mainstream sources, including even the government, right? And perhaps the next slide, please, Sigal. Thank you very much. Now, talking about trust and innovation, let's look at some specific market insights, and these are from a CII study in the UK. So the top row has retail insights, and the second row, the bottom one, has small and medium enterprises. Let's focus on the top row and look at it from left to right. The idea is that there are lots of different kinds of dimensions, or let's say opportunities for a financial service company, or specifically insurance company, to increase customer trust. And what we see before the pandemic and during the pandemic is something interesting. A, that loyalty and confidence remain top of mind. There seems to be no difference made there. But the ease part of it, i.e. the ease of closing an insurance policy or getting or buying an insurance policy, has fallen down, right? And of course, we have to remember that many in the insurance industry have tried to optimize that, make it more app-like, easy, personalized, and all those are very good things. Not trying to say anything against that, but the insight is what is most important is the trust, is the confidence that when things go wrong, the insurance company will step in and fulfill the promise, right? So I think that's something to keep in mind. So it's not just about innovation and access to technology, but about what parts of the value chain and what parts of the customer experience are being focused on. Can you go to the next slide, please, Asiel? Thank you. And how do we increase trust, right? So here's a potential framework that I find personally useful. So, it starts with the basics of the product itself. How easy is it to find the policy? How easy is it to understand the policy once you have found it, right? What are the channels available in which you can communicate with your insurance provider? And when you talk about these things, it's important to realize that some of those barriers to that ease of customer experience are legacy systems, right? That's just a known quantity. And also, again, one of our priority scenarios in insurance is core systems, and Sapiens is a strong partner there. The second one is, of course, data. What's the quality of the data you have? Is it in line with regulation in terms of do you need to hold the data you're holding? And what kind of AI and machine learning modules are you using? Are the data sets that are being used, are they fair? At Microsoft, for instance, we have the principles of ethical AI, where we make sure that that's very transparent and that's trying to be as non-discriminatory as possible. Excuse me. And And then a professor from Scotland I read recently made the interesting point that trust is made up of goodwill and competence. So the competence bit, I believe, is strongly linked to innovation, right, and continuous innovation. And that's where the technology platform comes in, right? So, and access to relevant outside SaaS providers as well. Cybersecurity is fairly straightforward. If you are obliged to make sure that the data that you hold from your customers is kept in a secure fashion, right? Culture, right, is again, how are people, especially the sales staff and the claims staff, for instance, the ones who most frequently engage with the customer, are they trying to make sure they have the best interest of the customer at heart within the framework of the business model? But that's something, again, it's a leadership issue and probably a little less to do with technology, right? And perhaps the most important thing, and that's the reason I put it in a slightly different color, is purpose. And it has to do with the signals coming out last year from the Business Roundtable in the US. This year, BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager, talked about putting sustainability at the heart of everything they do. We've had the president of Walmart talk about stakeholder capitalism, and both and leading consulting firms have come up with ideas on using the private sector, making more of an impact on major causes as opposed to writing checks to NGOs, right? So all of that hopefully is something that can be used to drive more trust, right? And that's going to be one of the key topics, I believe, from the consumer side. Perhaps the next slide, please, Sigal. Thank you very much. And now I'm coming to the end of what I'd like to share with you. And being from Microsoft, I'd like to share a perspective of how we look at our large customer base. So of course, from a customer first mindset, we make sure that we understand the priorities and the market context and the ambition of each and every enterprise customer. But broadly speaking, we've identified 4 clusters where we believe there's going to be a lot of value for insurance companies. So one of them is about collaboration and teamwork, and this is especially useful now in the COVID situation with remote work playing such a major role. It's about risk modeling and the access to high performance compute in a on-demand basis. You're not paying for capacity you're not using. And again, the risk landscape is evolving so rapidly that this makes sense from a pricing perspective. It's about making sure that the user experience, the policyholder experience, the customer experience is sophisticated, and even that the remote selling experience is perhaps even better than the in-person selling. And finally, the fourth one, and I've saved this for the last, even though it's the third in the order on the slide, are what we call modernized core insurance systems. And that's where, of course, Sapiens, and we work very closely with Sapiens in that space. There are a couple of customer examples on the slide, and I encourage anyone to have a look at our very extensive customer use case or repository offline. That's it really from my side, Nicola. Thank you very much for your attention, everyone.
Thank you, Shrikant. Actually, we have a question regarding your trust framework, and the question is about the trust aspect, especially from a data protection, network security point of view. You know that in Europe, for instance, in 2018, GDPR has been put in place from the EU Commission. You know that it's some kinds of tension sometimes between the big giants, including Microsoft, and the EU community, and especially the regulator there. We also know, and we've heard from Finn, we've also heard this from Steve, that cyber threats is getting more important now for insurance companies, also in the light of what has been the working model following the COVID pandemic. So my question is how effectively Microsoft is the partner in order to make sure that this trust is there, especially around data protection, network security, etc. Because you are the leader, especially in terms of public cloud in the insurance industry in Europe, for instance. I'm talking from a European perspective. I'd like to get your view on how you will help and continue helping insurance companies in this context.
Certainly, thank you, Nicola. So I think there are a couple of aspects there, right? Let me first talk about the pure cybersecurity angle to it. A couple of weeks ago, we released the cyber defense report, and one of the statements there caught my eye, which was cybercrime is a business. So people really go about, not just, it's no longer emails from some prince asking for money to be transferred. It's much more sophisticated, and it's linked to topical news happening right now, right? So it could be about a football match, it could be about a strike, and therefore there's a huge advantage to having a dedicated amount of resource countering that threat. And at Microsoft, we spend $1 billion annually on cybersecurity. And we have teams of people who are hired to try and hack Microsoft systems. So from that perspective, taken very seriously, and we try and provide that sort of and because we have an end-to-end suite in the commercial space, we try and make sure that our customers get a really good basic network security from that angle. The second part of it is the security of our cloud-based data centers, and these are also extensive in terms of who has access there. Who gets, even employees, do they have access to which parts of the data center, physical access to those places, the locations are kept secret. But I think those are perhaps the basic building blocks. The third thing, which is really important, is also how we engage and with our customers, and especially our enterprise customers. With the leadership message, our CEO has been quoted as saying that privacy is a human right. So we take that very seriously. But also in terms of how do you use technology to try and detect any kind of leaks of customer data, right? And because it's not something that can be done and there is never going to be a breach, but it's also how do you react to a breach? How much resilience can you contribute to? So those are the three areas I would say perhaps how Microsoft works in that dimension.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive, I have to say. I like to hear this answer, and I'm sure that all insurance companies will love this too. Let's move on because we are a bit late, and I'd like to give also more time to Sapiens to provide their views on new technologies and methodologies that help insurance companies achieve their business objectives. So maybe I'll start with with an overall question about the problem of insurance companies on the life side to generate underwriting profit. So we know that the technical ratios are highly under pressure, and I'd like to better understand from you, and I don't know who wants to take this one on the Sapiens side, but I'd like to hear how Sapiens can help insurance companies improve the technical ratios, and in what technologies is key that you can offer in this context.
Nicola, let me start from a sort of a technology and solutions perspective, and I suspect Stuart will add his knowledge from an underwriting perspective. Yeah, absolutely. So cost efficiency is a massive topic, and I mentioned earlier that the extent of competition in the UK is extreme. So there's a massive focus at Sapiens in taking cost out of processes, using greater levels of automation and greater levels of straight-through processing in this digital world, which can be very helpful and is proven from a Sapiens case study perspective to help our customers reduce their operating costs. But I think that's only part of the equation. The other part is the reality that we're living in a world which is constantly changing, and the cost of delivering change is a major part of cost that trickles through eventually into the underwriting profit. Again, the cloud, the opportunity to have a DevOps-based ongoing change capability massively accelerates change and massively reduces the cost of delivering change, as well as using more agile development and delivery mechanisms and basing your systems around configurability. So those are the key things. From an underwriting perspective, Stuart, I know you mentioned Internet of Things and the cooperation between insurer and insurers. I think that's probably another big area.
Yeah, absolutely, Stephen. Thanks. Yeah, so I mean, I've been in the underwriting world for a long time, and I've seen massive evolution. And the biggest evolution I'm witnessing at the moment is the use of different risk factors in assessing longevity or mortality or morbidity. Ever since I joined this industry 30 plus years ago, the actual risk assessment criteria hasn't changed much, but in the last 3 or 4 years, what we're seeing is a lot more emphasis being put on what I would call social risks. So, for instance, occupation is a massive risk factor that's taken into account now. Marital status is becoming important. And we all know that we've got the technology now whereby the 30-year-old doesn't have to answer the same set of questions as the 50-year-old. And that's good. That makes so much more sense. And so what we're seeing is specific underwriting journeys being very personalised for different age cohorts. But that's the technical underwriting side of the answer to your question. I think there's another aspect, though, and that is that with Sapiens, we've very successfully in life and pensions delivered services and solutions which take risk and IT cost out of organisations through consolidation of back office systems, old back office mainframes and such like. And in so doing, what we're finding is that there's a huge amount of redundancy in terms of operational process that can be achieved, and that again achieves good profit margins and good return on investments. So I think we can't look at this question just from a pure technical underwriting perspective. I think it's far broader.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you. So again, do not hesitate to ask any questions. I have another one actually, and this is more for Gary, because Gary, you mentioned before that it's different alternatives for insurance companies, life insurance companies, to modernize the core systems landscape. And it's not necessarily about decommissioning a system and migrating the existing portfolio to a new system, which can be very risky and very time and cost consuming, I have to say. And so my question is more about how Sapiens is there to help life insurance companies who do not want to go for the big bang project. So how can you offer to life insurance companies who do not want necessarily to replace fully their core systems, the legacy system, but maybe digitize more the front end, or maybe automate more specific processes without necessarily touching the core system? You're on mute, Gary.
Thank you. Great question, Nicholas. And we're seeing a lot of this type of question being asked in the South African context specifically. All right, so they have invested heavily in their legacy technology stack. They're not looking to come off that program, especially in a COVID environment. It's deemed as a high-risk exercise. And literally what they're looking to do is to put the digital technologies as a layer over the legacy technologies to enable B2C and B2B engagement. Now, one of Sapiens' specific toolkit options is the ability for Sapiens portal capability to link into legacy platforms. Now, we're seeing a number of tactical deployments and discussions in this space where the legacy technology is still the underlying PaaS, but it's not the admin platform that it's a Sapiens proprietary, like a core suite or an Edit suite platform. So essentially, we put the Sapiens digital technologies using API conversion and the like, literally over their legacy platforms. But in addition, as a pure tactical play, some of the customers are also choosing to put the portal over the legacy platform as a tactical play whilst they re-platform behind the scenes. So literally from a customer engagement perspective, the customer sees no change. It's the same portal they log into. Their customer journey is exactly the same. However, behind the scenes, we're essentially replumbing into a new age technology like a Sapiens Core Suite solution, but it's unbeknownst to the customer engagement or the broker engagement piece on the front end. And it de-risks the entire process. And in addition, your customers and your brokers are taken care of in a digital world.
Okay, thank you. So maybe we can go to the last section, which is Q&A. We have questions coming. So do not hesitate again to ask key questions. Or we have this slide. I don't know whether one of you on the Sapiens side want to highlight these key recommendations there.
Yeah, sure, Nicola, I'll run through that. So I think it's a reflection on the conversation that we've had today, and thanks to all of the participants that have contributed. So we've heard about sustainability, business continuity and building trust. We've talked about agility and modern technologies using less code, more configurability, and more digital systems. And we've also touched on innovation. So the use of Internet of Things, InsurTech. I think reflecting all of those, and particularly the one that came in the last question, the reality of legacy, Sapiens would make the following recommendations. Number one, get your head into the cloud. It's very fast moving, as Srikanth rightly said. Companies like Microsoft, and they're a huge partner for us, are spending billions on improving security. That's not money that we can spend as individual businesses. So leveraging that investment is key. Getting smart with data. Again, this legacy coexistence theme keeps coming back to us. Stuart mentioned it, Gary mentioned it. The UK particularly still is burdened by a significant amount of legacy systems. They're not going to go away fast. Whilst we may be implementing new systems and modernizing core systems, which we absolutely have to do, you've got to recognize that legacy systems will be there. They've got to coexist. You need to be able to synchronize data across them so that you retain your single customer views. And as Gary mentioned, use the digital layer to achieve that. Use APIs that can aggregate the data to be able to present a front end to the world that isn't impacted by the ongoing change. So those are I think the key things that Sapiens is working on right now. I'm just going to give a little shout out to one of our customers who's just gone live over this weekend on the cloud, another one on the cloud with some fabulous data synchronization and data quality assurance. So I think they probably know who they are. Congratulations, guys.
Mm-hmm. Okay, moving on to the Q&A session, because we have about five minutes left. We have a question about your services at Sapiens. So how does Sapiens help companies get better value from the data to service their customers better? Anyone interested to answer this one?
I can take that one.
Okay.
It's one of these very interesting questions, because it's, on the one hand, we are the vendor that comes with the core solutions, etc. But I think the difference, if you look at Sapiens, is that we also come with a lot of competencies around insurance. So, I mean, we have a whole competency department just for life and pension that is only staffed by ex-insurance employees that can actually go into these management discussion, but also can challenge our customers and saying, what do you want to achieve with this, and have you thought about this and that? And I think, like some of my other colleagues have been talking about, the different products that are coming along. But again, with modern solutions, we have the ability to actually produce loads of data, but it's more of a kind of question how you can take those data and actually produce value. And I think they're kind of the collaboration that we have with our customers, the cooperation, that's where the magic begins, because once we understand where the customer wants to go, we can challenge that, and we can work together to optimize the use of that data, so that the customer feels that all the dialogues are being personal and adjusted to his needs.
Thank you. Actually, another question, maybe more for Srikanth, and this is about the partnership between Microsoft and Sapiens. Again, Microsoft is certainly a leader in terms of public cloud in insurance, especially in Europe, I have to say. But can you provide more on how the collaboration with Sapiens works, and especially around the different core systems that you have now moved more and more and more? I would say they are fully cloud enabled, and I'd like to understand how this collaboration works for insurance companies who are interested to work with both of you.
Sure, happy to do so, Nicola. I think that our collaboration is on a number of different dimensions, right? First of all, of course, you can get Sapiens running on our cloud solution, Azure, right? So that's one clear case of the two technology platforms coming together, right? So that's a basic one. Secondly, we are, my colleagues and I, we are also incentivized to make sure that we're promoting the Sapiens solution when we engage with our customers and we see a relevant fit, right? So that's another part of it. And to do that, we also have the relevant organization behind that, both from specific people who are responsible to ensure that they have a one person point of contact for Sapiens, both in terms of people from Microsoft going to, let's say, Sapiens conferences. I was there last year at a Sapiens annual meet in Rome, for instance. And finally, I think the other thing is things we're doing where we exchange ideas on what direction do we see innovation happening in the industry? How do we bring the full force of Microsoft and our solutions to Sapiens, right? But these are also complex B2B solutions. And I believe that there is a lot of scope for us to say, okay, if these are the modules that Sapiens is offering to solve one customer problem, can we as Microsoft either bring in certain ML aspects to it? Can we connect you to other people in our partner ecosystem to solve specific problems, to provide a better service to our joint customer, right? So those are the ways I believe in which we do collaborate together.
Okay, thank you, Shrikant. I'm just conscious of the time, and we have another question I'd like to ask before we close the session. But I think this is a very important and interesting question. So this is for the Sapiens people. So are you seeing new technologies and methodologies being used to improve the management of closed books? And I know you have good technologies around closed books.
Yes is the answer.
Okay.
But I mean, yes, yeah. So Sapiens have a somewhat unique proposition in the marketplace with the ability to consolidate legacy books of business and manage dirty data, as it's called. Now, I know Shrikant was in his presentation was saying the importance in having good quality data, but by God, some of the data that you find on these legacy systems is far from good quality. So we've overcome that challenge, and we've very successfully done over 25 migrations onto our platform to help organizations realize huge cost savings, both in operational cost savings, but also removing massive IT debt. And it also benefits from a compliance and fiscal perspective, because at the end of the day, what you've then got is customers all being managed on a one process strategy. All the reconciliations are far easier. One of the biggest challenges we found in the past when we talk to organizations, and we're still talking to organizations, is the problems they have in reconciling across different platforms. And reporting across different platforms. And Steve Williams mentioned the cost of change. The cost of change is horrendous. And I don't think we're going to see anytime soon a relaxation in change in regulation in that space.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Stuart. I want to thank you, everybody, for joining this session today. It's been a very interesting discussion for me to moderate. I want to thank you, especially Finn again, Gary, Steve, Stuart, and Shrikant for their participation. I hope you've enjoyed the session, and please join the next one Sapiens will organize. They will always try to make it interesting for everybody. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you.